Welcome to YogiViews, where my guest is yoga itself, through interviewing those who practice it, teach it, sell it, or simply love it. I am Antonio Sausys. This is the second part of a two-part show where I'm interviewing Timothy McCall. For some, yoga is therapy, and they mean that in a symbolic way. For others, it actually is a form of therapy. It's widely known that yoga can enhance your physical and emotional well-being, but when yoga is practiced with a therapeutic intention in the form of yoga therapy, it can help prevent and aid recovery from physical and mental ailments. In recent years, and as more clinicians use yoga techniques either for themselves or for their patients, and as more teachers design specific applications of the teachings of yoga to address certain conditions, the spectrum of yoga therapy grows exponentially. What is yoga therapy and who is a yoga therapist is a matter of increasing interest and concern in the yoga and medical communities. My guest today is a board-certified internist, the medical editor of Yoga Journal, and the author of two books, Yoga as Medicine, The Yogic Prescription for Health and Healing, and Examining Your Doctor, a patient's guide to avoiding harmful medical care. His name is Timothy McCall. Welcome, Timothy.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
He has studied yoga since 1995 with Patricia Walden, and more recently, he has been working with Donald Moyer and Stryker. In addition, Timothy travels regularly to India to research yoga, yoga therapy, and Ayurveda, and to study with a traditional Ayurvedic Vaidhya doctor in Kerala and Tantric master in Bangalore. His main focus since the year 2000 has been investigating the therapeutic aspects of yoga, as well as the scientific explanations of yoga's effects. His articles have appeared in dozens of publications. He currently lives in the San Francisco Bay Area and gives lectures, seminars, and yoga workshops around the US and internationally. How does yoga help the spirit?
Well, if you want a mechanism of action, that's a little tougher to provide. But I think we know that when you do yoga, you tend to notice interconnections. And you could say that yoga makes you more compassionate. It makes you realize that other people are kind of the same as you are. And that kind of ecological point of view is on some level a spiritual point of view, that we're all kind of in this together, that they're all part of one bigger thing. One spiritual thing that I think is crucial is this business about knowing what you're here on the earth to do. Why are you here? What is your purpose? Many people in the modern world have no idea what they're here to do. They slog through their life and they do some job that they maybe don't really like that much. And they don't really have a sense of meaning, and so they just look for ways to distract themselves and kind of get through the day. But, you know, the yogis teach that we each have a unique gift to give to the world. And with the practices and with the kind of cultivating awareness and calming down the mind, slowing down, we start to get a sense of what really gives us meaning. You know, and it can relate to everything in our life. We know that when we do some kinds of work, we feel bored and restless. When we do other things, we feel stimulated and uplifted. You know, if we start to pay attention to those clues that real-world feedback is giving us, we can start to guide our lives more in the direction of Dharma, more in the direction of our life purpose. So I think that that's huge in spiritual health, and of course, when you know what you're here to do, when you have a reason you're here, when you have a purpose, then if you've got a little pain or a little obstacle, you're probably going to have more fortitude to get through it. And if you know what you're here to do, and you really don't feel like doing your yoga practice today, you'd really rather just blow it off, but you know that when you do your yoga practice, you're better, and you're better able to deal with the world the next day, then maybe you just go to your mat and do it anyway. You know, so.
You've been exposed to many models of yoga therapy.
Yes.
And do you have one that is closer to your ideology or to your way of operating?
Well, again, I really believe in personalizing yoga therapy. So I like a one-on-one model. I'm very impressed with the model that TKV Deskachar uses, which is the patient or the student comes in to see the teacher. They get evaluated holistically. They get taught a practice at the very first lesson. No matter where they're at, they get taught something. Might be 5 or 10 minutes worth of stuff. And they have to go home. That's their homework. They do it every day for a week or two, and they come back for another appointment, and they see how they're doing it. Because yoga therapy is not what I give to you. It's what you do on your own. That's what determines whether or not you're going to get better. You can go to the most brilliant yoga therapist in the world, and they can teach you an absolutely insightful practice. And if you don't do it, it's as good as you didn't go.
Yeah.
Or maybe worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Because one of the core principles of yoga in terms of ensuring success is practice.
Practice.
If you don't practice, nothing happens.
Right.
Now, in that area related to practice, there has been some recent studies about brain functioning and how our brains operate. And you were mentioning that the nervous system and is very instrumental in connecting the mind, the body, and the spirit. And scientists have discovered something they now call neuroplasticity, which is the fact that contrary to what we used to think, that the brain does not generate new neurons, or that after a certain age is pretty much down the hill and that's it. We now know that the brain can in fact adjust, remap itself, reshape itself. And is that a connection with yoga? Because practice is what it offers, right?
Absolutely. And even though the ancient yogis didn't know about neuroplasticity specifically, the technology Patanjali outlines in the Yoga Sutras, this notion that success in yoga is related to regular practice without interruption over a long period of time with enthusiasm. I mean, that is a formula to take advantage of neuroplasticity to rewire the brain. And specifically, a regular habit repeated over a long period of time. What happens is neurons interconnect. And the more that neurons talk to each other, the stronger those connections, the stronger those neural networks become. So when you have a habit and you repeat it again and again and again, it becomes stronger and stronger over time. Now, most of us have negative habits, dysfunctional habits that get in the way of our health and well-being. Not only does yoga help us recognize those bad habits, but it gives us a technology to change things. Not by making the old habits go away. I mean, with disuse, they attenuate to some degree, but old habits never go away. They're always still there. But what we do is, using the body's ability to rewrite the nervous system, which it's doing, by the way, every single day, it's rewriting itself. Okay, we can progressively strengthen our yoga habit to the point where it starts to edge out some of the dysfunctional habits. Now, the other thing that happens with our yoga practice is that because it cultivates awareness, we start to more correctly notice the connections between what we do and what happens. So I may eat a food that I like the taste of, but due to my yogic awareness, I now know every time I eat that food, I feel spaced out and cranky a couple of hours later, and I start making the connection. Oh, I don't want to eat that food anymore. Now, it's a very different thing when a doctor says, don't eat that, that's bad for you, versus, when I eat that, I don't feel good. The first one, almost no one's likely to follow or for very long. The second one, it really can make a difference. So you combine this technology for rewiring the nervous system with this awareness that comes through practice of this intuitive sense of what's serving us and what's not serving us, whether that's food or work or the friends we hang out with or the books we read, or the music we listen to, all these things give us feedback. You know, I come home from work and I'm going to relax by sitting on the couch and watching the news. Well, you don't need a lot of yogic awareness to realize that that is actually not a very good way to relax.
Not very relaxing.
You know, so the point is, with that awareness, you make a different decision. It's not because the doctor says you should get off the couch and do a yoga practice. It's like, no, when I practice my yoga, I feel better. You know, I want to do it. You know, so in a sense, yoga makes us want to do what's good for us, and the more we do it, the stronger that habit pattern becomes, and the more likely it is to be sustained.
And the more perhaps then we can access that reshaping in a conscious way. So it's not just the brain left up to the
no,
what's happening.
And in fact, there's a tool that we combine with neuroplasticity, which is the yoga tool of sankalpa, which is the idea of setting an intention.
Yeah.
You know, and in setting an intention is deciding how we want to reshape our brain, and then, you know, sankalpa is not a wish. It's not, you know, I'm going to be 50 pounds lighter by Christmas. That's not a sankalpa. Sankalpa is a promise to yourself about what you intend to do. Okay, and that's what we take advantage of.
Yeah, and perhaps for those who don't know, the technique of sankalpa consists in formulating a statement that represents what you really want, where you want to be, what you want to accomplish in the present tense,
right,
in a positive form that then you repeat to yourself. And that's how things can be manifested. And it's a wonderful technique.
It's a way of reprogramming the subconscious.
Absolutely.
So you say that, and you say it verbatim, the same way every time, and you repeat it to yourself, and it starts to live in you. And sometimes, right when you need it, it bubbles up to the surface, and you hear the message. And sometimes when you hear that message, you change what you're about to do.
Now, in fact, in my years of teaching Sankalpa, Timothy, I have discovered that one of the big problems is that people don't know what they want, or that when knowing it, they name it in a way that is not conducive. It's very different to say, I am not unhappy, than to say, I am happy. There's a huge difference.
Yes.
And in that quest of knowing ourselves better and understanding our dynamics better, if you were to say that you have a menu that you can choose different items from, like in a restaurant, and to reshape our brain or to manifest what we really want, what would you say are 3 main issues that you think humanity, modern men, need to address, need to change through this process? What would be the 3 main items in the menu that you would go for?
To change humanity with yoga? This is the question?
Yes, to change our present times. I mean, we are obviously sick in
Yeah,
all forms
and
and ways.
Well, first of all,
mentally, physically, spiritually.
I'm going to start out with a cop-out, which is in good yoga therapy and good Ayurveda, the answer is always, it depends. So there isn't one solution for all of humanity. There are many tools which can help many different individuals. Different individuals will respond to different tools. And you know, I resist the one-size-fits-all solutions because, you know, some people need to meditate and some people, it's not where they need to be right now. I mean, ultimately, meditation is the most powerful tool in the yoga toolbox. But, you know, if someone is, you know, on the border of a psychotic break, you know, too much meditation is not the correct prescription.
Yeah.
You know, so we, you know, certainly people are out of touch with their bodies. We want to wake up awareness of their bodies. People breathe poorly. It affects their nervous system. It affects their mental health. It affects their patience and their anger and their sleep and their mood. So we want to help people breathe better. You know, these are basic things. And I think, you know, we talked about it a little bit earlier, to give people a glimpse that there is something better, calmer, more joyful that you can find, that it actually already exists in you. There's just a lot of stuff that, for most of it's kind of covering it up. And all we're really doing in yoga is kind of removing some of the obstructions to seeing what's there naturally. So, I mean, I think there are many different ways you can get at it. You know, chanting is a powerful tool.
Powerful.
If you're into it. But some people are like, chanting? What is that, some communist stuff? You know, I mean, they don't want to hear that. You know, so the beauty of the yoga toolbox, it's so varied. You can do a purely vigorous workout kind of yoga, or you can lie back over a bolster for an hour. You can meditate. You can go and serve people in need. They're all yoga. And for some people, one's really going to speak to them, and another one is not. So, and you know, the other thing is that what's right for you now may not be what's right for you tomorrow or a month from now. So when you really start to master some of these tools, you can pick and choose and say, what do I want today? Okay, today I'm tired. I'm going to do a more restorative practice. I'm going to do yoga nidra. You know, I'm going to just, you know, do a meditation and relax. You know, today I'm more vigorous. I'm going to do a strong back bend practice. I'm going to, you know, whatever. You know, just, I mean, the point is we have so many tools we can adjust. And ultimately, I think what we're trying to do as yoga therapists is put ourselves out of business, to teach people how to know what to do for themselves so that they don't need us anymore.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you are funneling or narrowing down all many options to awareness.
I think awareness is part of it, but what are you aware of, and is it what you'd like it to be, and do things need to change? I mean, there are a lot of things that come from awareness, but awareness is huge. Awareness is a huge part of what we're doing, absolutely.
Now, Timothy, you were saying a yoga therapist.
Yeah.
Who is a yoga therapist?
Anybody who wants to call themselves a yoga therapist as it stands right now.
As it stands right now. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a little bit of an issue, and this is why my question, because a lot of people that are not satisfied with the conventional Western model of medicine and are naturally inclined to trying new options and going towards yoga therapy, it's a big question. Who do I call? Why would I call this person versus that person? And then on the other hand, we have extremely well-prepared and well-versed people that have had extensive training in the healing arts that are incorporating yoga. But we also have the person who broke a knee, and because they used to do some yoga, now they are knee specialists and they have a program for the knee. And then we have those who are completely based in asana, and they just prescribe a few asanas, and those who, if it's not with meditation and if it doesn't include the spirit, then it's not yoga therapy.
Right.
Who is a yoga therapist for you that holds somehow the two worlds in you?
Well, you know, right now it's the Wild West, and you know, there is no official certification, nothing like that. So, you know, it's caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, and do your homework. I mean, there are many people who are wonderful who do this. You know, I'm of two minds on this. I understand the desire to want strict qualifications, but I also know that some people who are very good will not meet those strict qualifications. I also know that some people can study for 1,000 hours or longer
And not be good.
So, you know, that's the reality. The other thing, though, and I think this is the piece that gets lost, is that if you are a yoga teacher who does not have extensive training in yoga therapy, but if you can help people to breathe better, if you can help them to turn down their stress response, if you can help them to improve their posture, if you can start to raise their awareness, if you can bring them to a quiet place where they can maybe transcend their everyday life, if only for a few seconds, you can help people, and you can help many, many health conditions without even knowing a lot about those health conditions. So I don't want to scare people who don't have all the thousands of hours that are necessary to really do this job brilliantly from helping where they can help.
But would they need to call themselves yoga therapists?
No, I think they probably shouldn't. You know, I mean, my philosophy is that we should be careful about what we call ourselves, and we should under-promise what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yoga has the potential for absolute life transformation and can potentially help almost any health condition. You know, I'm not saying cure, but help the person with that condition do better, function better. You know, that is almost always possible with yoga.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I wouldn't promise people things. I think we simply say, you know, we have helped other people with similar situations. Let's see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't promise people cures. Don't promise that you have some master training. Just be modest, be humble, and do what you can do.
And then would you agree that to have a good referral system so that you know some other people that might really know what you don't, and then you can help them, take them to where you can help them, and then refer them to someone?
You know, I think in any healthcare field, one of the most important qualifications is knowing when you need help, knowing when you don't know what's going on. You know, and so, you know, for example, part of it is sometimes sending people back to their doctors.
Yeah.
To say, you know what, I'm not sure that this is really clarified. We don't really know what this is about. You know, you got a 65-year-old with back pain, and you know, you want to be darn sure that they don't have cancer in their spine or something like that, and you're treating them for months with asana trying to improve their pain when they have something else that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, we want to err on the side of caution. We want to under-promise what we do, but we also want to use these tools that we know can help most people, and not be cowed into feeling like we can't do it because we don't have all the qualifications. But yeah, and you know, honestly, even with 1,000 hours, which is the new standard they've come up with, that's not enough.
No.
Not if you're really, this is a lifelong study.
Yes.
You know, and I think actually the biggest qualification for being a therapist, and I don't think it's part of the official things that they look for, is are you a yogi? Are you walking the path of yoga? Because if you're not, you may know a lot of techniques, but you're not really going to be as effective as someone who really walks the path.
And that would definitely include the spirit or the spiritual aspects of yoga, in your opinion? Because we know that, especially in the United States, yoga had sprouted as a physical matter. And sometimes you teach pranayama or you want to do meditation and someone yells from the back of the room, I came here for asana, you know, they don't want it. So there's a lot of that. Would you say that in order for us to continue calling it yoga therapy, as well as being a yogi yourself, the spiritual aspect needs to be in the equation or not?
You know, I personally think that, you know, as a yogi, it is likely to be in your personal equation. But we have to meet our students, our patients, where they're at. And if people are allergic to the word spiritual, they don't want to go near any of that stuff, well, then we don't go there. We give them what they're ready for. And maybe we just give them asana. Maybe we just give them asana with attention to breath. Now we can say, well, that's just a physical practice. I don't know. You start to tune into the breath. You start to notice how the muscles are feeling. You start to notice your mind and how the mind affects. I think you're already on the path of yoga. And, you know, many people who didn't want to chant Om in the beginning, you know, a few years later, they're cool with it. You know, so I think people walk through doors to yoga, some of which we judge as being not deep or not spiritual. But yoga, its little fingers reach out and they touch some people who do even those superficial or seemingly superficial kinds of yoga. And a few years later, some of them turn up at the meditation retreat. Or a few years later, they're wanting to do other things that we would call spiritual. So I think we should be slow to judge and accept people where they're at and realize that, yes, in its fullness, absolutely, the spiritual is an integral part of yoga. And it's the real core of yoga on some level. But to impose that idea on people who aren't ready to hear it is to potentially lose people who might eventually get hip to that
Stay in
thing
the
that we
path and
believe.
then discover it, yes,
Yeah.
or get closer to it.
Yeah.
Well, that seems to be in agreement with what a lot of modern teachers and masters think, that despite of the level, because yoga is yoga, some people will get there eventually, one way or the other. You were talking today about understanding symptoms and illness as a feedback that one part of you has for another part of yours. So
Yeah.
the body is trying to tell you something.
Sure.
What would you say, I mean, what would you say if you say that there is one, but what could be a main feedback that our bodies are giving us in this moment? And I know it's a rather general question, but some things are happening. Obviously, we are, witnessing the autistic related syndromes that were never there before. Bacteria are mutating and getting. What is the message?
Well, I mean, I think one of the messages is just too much. We have a world that's just in our face all the time with, all the technology and all the communication forms and audio and video and voicemail and iPods and, just everything kind of simultaneously. It's like the opposite of pratyahara. It's just like
Pratyahara is concentration.
Yeah, well, the pratyahara is
Yeah.
the turning the senses inward,
Yeah.
and in a sense, our senses are just being pulled in every direction. And from a yogic perspective, that's murder in the nervous system. It's murder in the mind, and that's so. And of course, we are despoiling the earth, and we are really doing major damage. The climate is changing. And there's more pollution, and it's harder to get unsullied water and air and everything. And we live in that world that's under attack, and that's got to be affecting us.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a way that a lot of bad things are happening in the world. At the same time, you could say there's more concern for people in far-flung areas of the world. There's more compassion for other people than there ever has been in history. More people have access to deep ancient teachings. The yoga stuff that we're talking about on television now was something that you had to be a Brahmin of a certain part of India at the right time, and then you might get initiated to these secret teachings. So we have an opportunity, some of us, that we never would have had in ancient times. So, there's a lot of bad stuff going on, but there are people who are also waking up, and in some sense those are working together or in opposition. And we just hope that we can wake more people up before things really get even worse.
Well, Timothy, thank you for the part that you bring to the table in making this process feasible and happening. Thank you for your part on increasing the awareness of us all in regards to yoga and how yoga can aid the therapeutic process. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Probably the best way is just via my webpage, which is just Dr. McCall, drmccall.com. I also have an email, yogadoctor@gmail.com. So those are some simple ways to reach me. I'm a little hard to reach sometimes. I kind of keep a wall up to some extent, but I am reachable.
Wow, okay. Well, thank you very much. Thanks very much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for your contribution to this effort as well.
Thank you. And I hope to have you again in the show sometime.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you. My guest today was Timothy McCall. He is a board-certified internist, the medical editor of Yoga Journal, and the author of 2 books, Yoga as Medicine, The Yogic Prescription for Health and Healing, and Examining Your Doctor, a patient's guide to avoiding harmful medical care. He has studied yoga since 1995 with Patricia Walden, and more recently he has been working with Donald Moyer and Stryker. In addition, Timothy travels regularly to India to research yoga, yoga therapy and Ayurveda, and to study with a